Good evening, happy Friday. How are you doing today? I hope you are well and that you've had a good week. And thank you so much for joining me. Today we are going to be talking about your core and have you got good core control, and a little way we can test this out. So before I do that, please do let me know if you're out there by giving me a little thumbs up or a little heart if you are enjoying this video, and please do feel free to share with your friends if you think they might be interested in it. And also just to let you know, my Strong Motion program is still taking clients, but I had 7 spaces. I've only got 2 left. So if you're interested, please do shoot me a message because I think it's going to sell out this weekend for sure. So before let's move on to the topic. So we're talking about core strength. What do I mean by that? So sometimes we think about pulling in our belly, for example, or our teacher might cue us to pull the belly button into the spine. We're thinking about our abdominal muscles. Sometimes maybe we're just thinking about the rectus abdominis, which is the one in front. You know, there's all sorts of different things that we can think of when we think about the core. What I'd like you to think about is all of the abdominal muscles, and particularly the transverse abdominis, which is the deepest deep abdominal muscle. So you have your rectus abdominis on the front, you have your obliques, internal, external at the side, they're kind of more to do with side bending stuff. And then you have the transverse abdominis, which is the deep internal one, and it wraps all the way around you like a corset. So when we think about engaging the core, we need to try and think about engaging this muscle. And the way to help us do this the way to help us find it is to actually, we can place our hands into our waist. So I've got my thumbs in my back, just at the base of my rib cage. And I might even come up to kneeling. So I'd recommend if you're on the floor, come to kneeling. If you're standing up, this can also work really well standing up. What you want to do is you want to lean forwards just until you feel a little contraction happen at the back there, and then come back up to sitting for me. And let's try that again. Leaning forwards, you should feel a little contraction happening in the back of the body where your thumbs are. That's your transverse abdominis starting to fire. So what we want to do when we're engaging our core, in inverted commas, we don't just want to pull in our belly, for example. We really want to contract all the way around. And in fitness terminology, we call this bracing your core. So actually, rather than pulling in and hollowing the belly out, it's like I'm pressing into my fingers, but without actually pressing the muscles out. So it's an isometric contraction. The muscles contract but don't move. So again, with your hands around your waist, thinking about pressing out into your fingers and also into your thumbs at the back there. So you're engaging all the way around that transverse abdominis. So another thing I like to think about to help me really get this connection, what you want when you're doing movement that is kind of core related, that we're going to do a little bit of in a moment, is to really have this real strong cylinder with the torso. So obviously the spine is very mobile, and as dancers we're very used to moving it a lot, but a lot of exercises that we do when we're trying to build strength, we actually want to keep the spine pretty stable for the most part, to keep it safe and keep it in neutral. And in order to do this, we're going to have this bracing feeling around the abdominals. Another cue I like to use is ribs down. A lot of us have the tendency, definitely myself, to open up, flare the rib cage a little bit, and this takes away from some of that cylindrical solid benefit that you have. So ribs down, it's like you're pulling the tips of your ribs down towards your hips and then engaging all the way around as strongly as you can. So this is what I'd call the abdominal brace. Sometimes I call it the corset. Put your corset on You need to remember to breathe as well here, of course. So there is going to be a little bit of movement. You want to think of your diaphragm at the top and your pelvic floor at the bottom, like the top and bottom of this cylinder. And they're not going to be still like the surrounding of your cylinder. They're going to move a little bit because you're going to be breathing. So as you breathe in, the diaphragm is going to come down and contract, and then as you breathe out, the pelvic floor is going to contract and lift up as you breathe out the air. And you can actually contract the pelvic floor even more to assist with the breathing, but actually that will really help to solidify this core cylinder base that you've got and really help to protect the spine. Hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. Let's try it in action. So we're going to lie down. If you're doing this with me, have a little bit of space. We're going to be moving a little bit, but not too much today. This is something that you can have a bit of a play with. So lying down, and I want you to have your feet flat on the floor and you want your spine to be in a neutral position. So neutral usually means for most people that there's going to be a little gap in between the low back and the floor. And we're going to keep this neutral position throughout. So when I train floor work like this, my preference is to keep the spine in neutral always, and only work to where you can work whilst keeping the spine in neutral, particularly for things where we're lifting the legs off the floor, Pilates style exercises, that kind of thing. So let's think about that brace, that corset while we're down here. You can place your hands back into the waist again, and then really press the muscles out into your fingers, contract them out into your fingers, but without pressing and the actual moving the muscle in space, if that makes sense. So really contracting, feel that contraction in your fingers and your thumb at the back, ribs down, and then take a couple of deep breaths here. So breathing in, and then breathing out, contracting the pelvic floor, and again breathing in, and breathing out, contracting the pelvic floor. So from here, we're going to start moving a little bit. So keeping that brace on, you're going to lift one leg at a time. And remembering to stay breathing. So this can seem like a really simple exercise, particularly if you're used to doing a lot of yoga and Pilates. But how strong is your abdominal brace? Yeah, this is something that I only really discovered not that long ago, if I'm honest. I thought I was always using my abdominals, and I was, but actually this is, for me, certainly been a whole other level of contraction and control, and it's just taken my own training to a different level. So if you feel okay here, if you feel like you've still got that brace on and you've still got everything under control, you can take one leg up and then take the other leg up and then hold it for a moment and just make sure that you've still got that spine in neutral. If you want to progress it further, you can then start to tap the toes down, all whilst keeping the ribs down. So ribs down towards hips, your low back is in neutral, and that contraction is all the way around your torso. If at any point you lose any of that, then you can just bring one foot down and just go back to that alternate marching. So one more little variation for you to try here. Same thing, we're going to make sure we've got our corset on, got our abdominal brace on, and this time we're just going to take one knee out to the side and then bring it back to center. You might actually want to move your hands so that the hands are resting on the hip bones. Now I'm doing the other leg. And don't forget to breathe. And again, see how this one feels? Are you able to move the leg within the hip socket without the pelvis moving and without losing that abdominal brace, all of that good core connection? If you're doing good here, then we can take 1 foot off the floor and try taking that out to the side. And you can switch sides. Other one comes off and then out to the side. You might find it a little bit more challenging now. And if that one's still okay for you, feel free to come back into tabletop position. And then from here, you're taking the legs out to the side, all whilst keeping that pelvis nice and stable and your abdominal brace contracted. And you're still breathing. Okay, and then let's bring the feet down if they were already up in the air. And release. So I use this brace position when I'm doing my bridges, when I'm doing my squats, when I'm doing my lunges, pretty much anything that I'm doing where I want to keep the spine in neutral and I want a good solid core control, which is a lot of exercises, particularly when you start working with weights, then you really want to have that good contraction working. So what else did I want to say about this? I think that was it. Does anyone have any questions? Feel free to pop them in the comments if you do. Hopefully I'll see them. Sometimes Facebook Live doesn't always show me the comments during the broadcast and I'll have to come back to them afterwards. If you're watching on catch up, of course, please do pop questions in as well and tag me. I'd be really happy to answer them, and I just need to be tagged so that I remember to come back to them. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts about this. Have you been using the abdominal brace? Have you been contracting all the way around? Have you been using your transverse abdominis to control the core to keep your spine safe while you're doing this movement? Is this something new to you, or is this something that you've been using for a long time? I'd be really interested to know where people are at with this, because to me, I feel like this level of detail was fairly new. In the past sort of year or so, I've really learned this and I've really been working with it. So I haven't seen any questions come through. I think that was all I wanted to say about this. Please do let me know how you got on with this exercise. I would love to hear from you. And just a reminder as well, just a couple of places left on my Strong Motion program. So if you were interested in that, then please do shoot me a message or comment below, tell me more, and I will shoot you a message back. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I will see you next time. Have a lovely evening. Bye bye.